Welcome back to the Joe Spoon Show. I'm your host, Joe Spoon, for today's latest episode, and we are finally back. And we have a little upgrade with all the podcast stuff here. So, it's the new mic and everything. I have now a new soundboard and everything. So, hopefully, this thing works out. It's the first time I'm using it here. So, hopefully, this thing works out. I'm very excited to see how it works. But yeah, let's get into it here. Pretty much with a lot of the biggest news this week here. A lot of changes in the NFL, and I haven't been around to the school and a bunch of stuff recently, but a lot of changes, a lot of new guys coming in, and the big news here within just the last couple of minutes here is Ravens defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald will now become not only the youngest NFL coach in the NFL at age 36, but the new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. And this is definitely a very interesting move, and I think this is the main thing we're going to talk about a little bit today. Then, of course, the recent hire of Arthur Smith as OC for the Steelers as well. That was a lot of big breaking news yesterday. So I think definitely for Seattle here, you get a very young and innovative coach. Obviously, the Ravens defense has been a very good defense as of late. Especially the last couple of years, has been proven to be very well. I think this is definitely a guy to come in and help Seattle on, honestly, what I would consider a positional era for them here. As, obviously, now losing Pete Carroll, I think they're in kind of a spot where they're kind of transitioning from the older, back Pete Carroll to a new era of Seahawks football, and obviously I think out of all the options they had, I think this is one of the best ones they can make. I really like this guy. I think definitely, obviously, he's back with the Ravens defense, and the way that defense has performed in the past is a big help for them. And I think Seattle definitely, they shift from a little more from an offensive guru to a defensive guru, but I think definitely this is going to be a good help for them. And I do like the move, obviously, for Seattle. I think it will work out well, and I think, obviously, he's going to be a rookie coach, so there's going to be at times he's, a little off and stuff, but I think he can do definitely a very good job to that point here, so I would say definitely, overall, that is a good move by Seattle, and I definitely think the Seahawks, they're looking for the next great coach after the retirement of Pete Carroll, and I think this is what we'll do here for them. Now, moving on here, we have a couple other, of course, new head coaches for the Falcons, of course, following Arthur Smith. They now hire here Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams, and he's done a great job with that defense, obviously. Of course, winning a Super Bowl with them, but, obviously had a lot of talent with it, with Ramsey and Donald and a whole bunch of other guys as well. But obviously this year, a lot of new young faces on that defense who were like third, fourth round picks, and he made them work, and he made a great defense, I think, this year. This year, to a lot of us, that was going to be a rebuilding year for the Rams. Obviously, they made the playoffs. Again, losing in the first round. They're a very streaky team, except a lot of their young players really seem to show up and possibly be a face of the future for them. So there was a lot of excitement on that front, and I think Raheem Morris had a big part in all these young guys in defense doing well and being able to play the way that they did, and the defense kind of getting at least some of its strengths back after, of course, some big setbacks last year after winning the Super Bowl. But yeah, definitely, I think a good hire for the Falcons. Obviously, I think some people think there's going to be an offensive-minded coach, not a defensive-minded one. But I do think this is the right hire here for them. I think he definitely has learned from his mistakes as a head coach previously, and I think definitely he should do well, I think, in this new role. And I think the staff he's already built around him does look like it is what Atlanta is needing. Because honestly, Atlanta, I do feel like they definitely need someone on defense talking about big time with that. But they also are probably a quarterback away. So definitely, obviously, I think they look at the quarterback position in the draft here. And I know there's a lot of teams wanting to trade up, and I think that is a team in Atlanta that is too odds for them to trade up, obviously, at this point here. Moving on to the Los Angeles Chargers, they make the big move, and they bring in Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. So definitely a lot of intrigue on that one. I think this is a great hire. I think out of all the hires you could have done, that was the best one you could get. And I think this will work perfectly, obviously. LA already has their franchise quarterback. You don't have to race off looking for that. They do have a lot of older talent that they are going to have to let go due to salary cap bases from the previous GM. So they may not be the best team next year, but they have a good coach, and I do think, obviously, they will get the ship turned around. And I think Justin Herbert definitely is going to be a big beneficiary to what Jim Harbaugh can do for that team. And Jim Harbaugh is a winner. Obviously, you look where he's gone. A lot of great success, especially in the NFL. His 49ers when he was the coach. They were one of the best teams in the league. They made the NFC Championship game multiple times. They made Super Bowls. They were a good team and a well-coached team at that. And obviously, I think the Chargers, that's what you're going to be getting. You're going to be getting a well-coached, hard-fighting team that can win games. And that is something the San Diego Chargers have not had in a very long time. Has been something they've been looking for, consistency in winning. Jim Harbaugh, obviously, I think, does deliver that to you to this point. So I like the hire. For Michigan, it kind of sucks. They're losing their head coach. But for LA Chargers fans, and I think just the Chargers nation in general, this is exactly what they finally need. I think they've been looking for a good coach for a very long time. This is it. You finally have the coach now. So you just got to build on Harbaugh and some of the other young guys there, and I think you have a very good team. And with that 6th overall pick here, too, you can definitely consider trading down so teams who want quarterbacks get quarterbacks. But there's also very nice options there, say a Brock Bowers or someone like that you can add to your team and definitely ignite that offense. I would say Marvin Harrison Jr., but I don't think he'll be there by 6. Someone will be smart enough to take him. I think Arizona will be smart enough to take him, hopefully. But yeah, I definitely think the Chargers, they're in an interesting spot, but I think a definitely exciting spot. And again, a guy like Jim Harbaugh to come in, that's going to really hopefully get the wheels moving and get them back to where they expect to be. Because obviously with Staley, they expect to be Super Bowl contenders. That did not happen. I think Jim Harbaugh is a significantly better coach than Staley. And when I mean significantly, I mean significantly. I say Staley's on here, skill level. Harbaugh's probably on here. Honestly, he's a guy who can win, and he's succeeded at the NFL level, so there's no reason to think he's not going to succeed at this level. Obviously, of college coaches, you got to always worry about the adjustment from college to Pro Bowl. But obviously, of course, Jim Harbaugh, that's where he came from. He's not a college coach, he's more of a pro coach, and he has succeeded in the NFL level. So obviously, I think that's exactly what you need, and he's done a good job to this point here when he's been in the NFL and when he's been in college, and I think that continues here with the Chargers. Moving on, obviously, Commanders, they have still not filled that position as of this moment. I think they're the only one still vacant at this point. Obviously, Tennessee did have theirs, the former Bengals OC, and I'm kind of forgetting the name here, so I'm going to look it up. But interesting hire, I will say. Cincinnati's had a very good offense whenever Joe Burrow was there, and even with Jake Browning this year, it was a consistent offense. So I do think, obviously, offensively, that's what they're looking for. And here's the name, Brian Callahan, there it is. I just think it was something like that. I was just trying to remember. But Brian Callahan, obviously, now the Titans head coach, OC. But obviously, the Cincinnati OC done very well. He developed Jamar Chase very well, developed T. Higgins very well. And he led a very explosive offense in his time in Cincinnati. He comes to, obviously, Tennessee with the hopes of being able to accomplish that. As they are in a rebuild phase, obviously, Henry is most likely gone. And there's just really not much there offensively. So the hope is that he can develop guys like Treylon Burks and bring in some other young offensive talent as well. And obviously, Will Levis is the main question there, obviously, is can he develop Will Levis into a quarterback who is the franchise QB? Obviously, Will Levis is a very talented player. That's where he was coming into the draft. Obviously, kind of guy is probably got to wait a year for him to be really good. And obviously, they want him to succeed. They didn't take him with that second-round pick for him not to be the face of the franchise in the future. So obviously, that's where they want to go. And obviously, I think for the development of Will Levis, I think this is a good hire. Obviously, he did develop Joe Burrow, so he has experience in developing good quarterbacks. And the hope is that he can do that with Levis. With Will Levis, obviously, we will see on that fact. Definitely kind of spotty one. But next time, he'll obviously with the Patriots, Gerard Mayo as the successor to Belichick. I think it's okay. I don't think it's that good of a hire. I think they should have done something a little better than that. But he is who Belichick wanted to take over, and that's why he gets the job. And he does seem like a good guy, does seem like a good coach. Obviously, you know, seem in a head coaching way, obviously, in the way the Patriots have been last couple of years. There's definite questions as to how good of a coach he really is, because it's coming from within the organization, in an organization that's not been very good in recent memory, obviously. But it's going to be a very different message in the Patriots locker room. A lot of things are going to change for the Patriots in this next couple months. And it is definitely an exciting time for your Pats fans to see what all changes. It's sad that it's over, but they get into some new, hopefully innovative stuff, and I think there's a lot of excitement on that front as to how much really does occur on that side of things. But definitely, I think it's an interesting hire. We'll see how it goes. I think out of most of the hires, I would say this is probably one of my least favorite ones, just because I was obviously expecting something a little better. I think definitely a guy like Mike Vrabel would have been a lot better for the Patriots. I think that's a really good coach. Which is a shame, still does not have a job at this point. But I think that would have been a better fit for the Patriots than Mayo. But I think obviously we'll see what happens with Mayo. Obviously, of course, they will definitely be getting a quarterback in this draft. They will not be drafting anything else. And I've already said they're going after a quarterback, so I expect Drake Mayo, Caleb Williams to be that guy in New England at this point. So I think definitely very interesting on that front. And then obviously I'm just trying to remember who else has got the coaching vacancies. Carolina. They hired the Tampa Bay OC, and I gotta look up how to pronounce his last name. I know the last name. I gotta pronounce it like Chinanos, I think. I gotta look up how to say it here. Let's just see here. Because it's a very odd name to say. But let's look it up here. Because if you look at it, it's like, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce this one. But definitely, of course, their new head coach here, Dave Canales. I think that's how you say it. Obviously, the Buccaneers OC has done a good job in developing Baker Mayfield. Tampa Bay getting him back up to what he expected to be, and he's had a spectacular season because of that. But also, I think he was with Seattle before and did a good job with Smith as well. So definitely, obviously, has experience with developing quarterbacks, and obviously they expect everything from Bryce Young. He is the fair-sized guy. That's why they made that insane trade for him. They have a firm belief that he is the guy, and they expect him to be the guy, and they want to make sure he is developed in the best way possible. And I think definitely, in that way, I think it's a good move. He's developed quarterbacks very well. I think that's going to help them big time. The only thing I will say is, not much that coaching experience, and I don't expect him to do very well, just due to the fact that Carolina, there's pretty much nothing there. And they don't even have a first-round pick, obviously, because that's property of the Bears, who now have the first-round pick again, and they weren't even that bad this year. Just Carolina was so bad, and they owned Carolina's pick, so they get the pick, which is pretty funny, honestly. Then they trade the first-overall pick to get a really good wide receiver, another pick, and then another first-round pick, first overall. So obviously, they had a good haul from that trade. Brings that in. I think the offense will hopefully improve. I think Bryce Young's second year, he will improve at some bit. I think definitely this is a guy, if you want to get improvement out of that quarterback position, he was someone who could offer that to you and bring that in. That's what Carolina was looking for, and that's what they get. And I do think on that front, that's the good hire for them. But still, obviously, I don't think he was the best head coaching prospect out there. Yet that is what he did, and I think definitely with his development, history of quarterbacks, and seeing what Bryce Young has been to this point, it is something that you want, and I do think that hopefully will succeed. But moving on here to the last thing we're going to talk about today here is obviously, of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers hiring their new OC, and it's Arthur Smith, the former Falcons head coach. Obviously, not many people were positive for his time in Atlanta, not using Kyle Pitts or Drake London or Bijan Robinson last year, and a lot of use of Jonnu Smith. A lot of people hate that. A lot of people consider him a maniac when it came to fantasy, as he kind of was screwing up all the guys except for Jonnu Smith. So, a lot of native fan view. However, I think as an OC, what he did in Tennessee was actually very impressive. So the question really with this is, what Arthur Smith are we getting? If the Steelers again prime Tennessee Arthur Smith with a spectacular one of Dale Henry and a great season from Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, then I think obviously 100% this is the right hire. This is going to fix things. If you're getting the Atlanta one who barely used playoffs at all and just did not seem like he was doing well, then it's a complete disaster of a hire. It's a very there's a lot of if scenarios here on how this works out. What I will say is, definitely Najee Harris will definitely benefit a lot from this role. He does great work with running backs, does in general. Obviously, Dale Henry's the pick when you talk about from his time in Tennessee. But honestly, if you really talk about Bijan Robinson, he did have a couple games and he wasn't used that well. But if you look at his touch totals and stuff like that, he had about the same as McCaffrey, who had the most in the NFL. So that's a kind of a narrative that really is not much of a narrative. Like, Bijan Robinson was used. It's just Bijan Robinson, I think, more or less, there were some rookie issues with him. Obviously, as a rookie, you're not going to be 100% full on, going to be there and get ready. Do I think they could use Bijan better on the offense? Yeah, I think they could have. But he had good success. For a rookie running back, he had great success this year. I think that's something you do need to take into effect. I look at Tyler Algier the year before. Also had Arthur Smith, won for 1,000 yards as a rookie. Like, this is a guy who can develop running backs very well. And if you look at the Steelers running back room, it's Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, both very good running backs. They do different things, but they work very well together, and they've been both developed quite well. Obviously, if you have a healthy Najee with a good offensive line, he's near unstoppable. You really can't stop him. Like, we saw in some of the games this year, especially in the Bengals one, he wouldn't go down for like 10, 15 yards, and he had like 5 guys trying to tackle him. Like, you can see that obviously can help, he can do a lot of great things. Same with Warren. He's got great speed, and he can catch the ball, obviously. So I think definitely for those guys, it's a great hire. The question is for Kenny Pickett, is this the best hire? I do not think in that front, if you want to continue to develop him, this was probably not the right move. I would have gone someplace else. I would have gone to Clint Kubalik of someone from the Shanahan or McVay systems. However, what I will say on this is, where Kenny Pickett was most effective was in the pocket with running, obviously, like it's in the shotgun. Like whenever he was in the shotgun formation, obviously with the running back there, that is when he was throwing the football from that formation. That's where he was most effective last year. And that is what Arthur Smith does run. That is like obviously his offense. That's what he was doing with Tannehill in Tennessee. But the idea of that is you have the running back in there, so defenses obviously expect that you're going to give the ball. But pretty much what that does, it gives you options to be able to give it to the running back or throw the football. And it gives you both options, both effective. Obviously, the Titans loved using that when he had Arthur Smith. It was utilized some in Atlanta, but not as much. It was still obviously utilized to a degree, but it wasn't like it was in Tennessee. I think in Atlanta, he tried some different things as well that didn't really succeed as much as it did in Tennessee. However, I do think definitely that's where Pickett was most effective last year, and just in his career, that's where he's been the best at. And that is something the Steelers did not run much of last year. So I do think in that sense, that is good for Pickett, but they're going to need to hire someone else to work with him directly in the face of a quarterback's coach or a passing game coordinator, which honestly, if I was the Steelers, I'd be hiring both because the passing game, that's not Arthur Smith's best thing. However, he is not bad at that. Obviously, if you look at the guys, he has developed good wide receiver talent. I think, say what you will about Drake London, obviously, didn't perform as much as people expected, but he is a good quality wide receiver. Like, it's not like he's a bad player. It's just he could have been used a little bit better. Obviously, he needed to be focused on a little more. But the other question is, too, they did have the quarterback play they have had in Atlanta has been pretty awful, to say the least. So, obviously, there's sometimes maybe limitations with the quarterback, and that's what they've had to adjust to. That's another thing you got to take into effect when talking about Arthur Smith and Atlanta. Like, obviously, I wasn't the biggest fan of this hire, but just have taken effect, what's all going on in Atlanta, and obviously when you look at those, you start to realize that also it wasn't perfect, but there's other reasons that it wasn't like it was in Tennessee. There was a lot more issues. I think, obviously, a guy like Ryan Tannehill was better than anything that Atlanta had a quarterback, and I think Pickett is probably better than what anything Atlanta had at quarterback as well. And I think definitely, so he's just looking at how he developed in college. He was supposed to the wall and was nearly out of there and then turned into the guy we drafted, too. So you also have to take that into effect as well. But overall, I do think Arthur Smith, as a hire, I think actually, at first, I did not like this, but before making the podcast, I had to look into some stuff. And actually looking at it, it's not an awful hire if you're getting the Tennessee one. If it's the guy who's OC at Tennessee, if it's that Arthur Smith again, then this is a great hire, and this is going to really benefit Najee and all the other guys as well. And I think that he obviously could develop wide receivers in Tennessee, with A.J. Brown, obviously, of course, being the big example. So I think he can help out Pickens, too. I think definitely that's not like you're saying screw you to the wide receivers and stuff for this hire. if it's the Tennessee one. If it's the Atlanta one, it's still better than Canada. I will say that. It's still going to be significantly better than Canada. But it's not what you should have hired. But obviously, if he does what he did in Tennessee, then I think that for the Steelers offense, this is probably perfect, honestly, in my opinion. Not what I'd want, but obviously, your strengths are probably going to be your running backs. I think that's pretty much established after this year. Your strengths would be Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. Those are your strengths. And you need to solidify them and continue to get them better and better. In which case, Arthur Smith, perfect guy to do that. That is what he's very good at. And I see where the Steelers came from this hire, and honestly, he also has the play calling experience. The other guys did not have that, so, it's a little more risky. This guy, he's a little more safer of an option, but he has had very good success as an OC. So, obviously, this could be a good hire. It could be a bad hire. I think at this moment, I'm middle of the road. I'm not really wanting to make a decision as if it's good or bad at this point. I kind of want to see what he does and if it's going to be more of the Tennessee guy. If it's the Tennessee version of him, then it's going to be great. If it's the Atlanta version, we're not going to be screaming File Smith every single time, but it's going to be like, it's okay, but this should be better. You know what I mean? But that's really it here for today's episode. Thank you guys for listening and watching in here if you're on YouTube, and have a great one. Bye.